When my husband, Caleb, proposed that we invest our entire life savings into building an isolated modern house deep in the Oregon woods, I thought he was just looking for peace. He spent 18 months drafting the blueprints, pouring the concrete, and obsessing over every floorboard. I loved him for his dedication. But last night, while he was asleep, the heavy autumn rain washed away a layer of fresh topsoil right beneath our new front porch. What I saw sticking out of the mud wasn't an old tree root. It was a weather-worn concrete slab with a name carved into it. A name Caleb told me belonged to a man who died thousands of miles away. I am Clara, 29F, and Caleb, 32M, has been my rock for 6 years. He's a structural engineer, meticulous, quiet, and deeply private. For years, we lived in a cramped, noisy apartment in Seattle, saving every single dollar from my job as a high school counselor and his corporate salary. Caleb always had this fixation on self-reliance. He didn't want to buy an existing house. He wanted to build one from scratch, with his own hands, where nobody could bother us. When he found an incredibly cheap 5-acre plot of land deep in the woods, hours away from the nearest town, he was ecstatic. The price was suspiciously low, but Caleb explained it away by saying the ground was rocky and difficult to clear. I trusted him blindly. I packed our lives into boxes, and we moved into a temporary trailer on the site while the heavy machinery rolled in. For a year and a half, our life revolved around concrete mixers, timber frames, and sleepless nights. Caleb became completely consumed by the project. He refused to hire outside contractors, doing almost everything himself or with occasional day laborers he paid in cash. He grew distant, losing weight, his hands covered in deep calluses and scars. Whenever I asked if he needed help, he would snap at me, telling me to stay away from the foundation work because it was dangerous. I thought it was just the stress of a man trying to build a legacy for his family. The house was finally completed 3 months ago. A beautiful, minimalist black timber cabin with huge glass windows looking out into the dense, silent pine trees. It felt like paradise. Until the storm started and the earth began to reject what Caleb had buried beneath it. The name on the stone was Arthur Vance. My heart beat like a trapped bird in my chest as I stood in the pouring rain, staring at the letters. Arthur Vance was Caleb's former business partner from 5 years ago back in Chicago. They had started a small construction logistics company together before it went bankrupt. Caleb had told me that Arthur couldn't handle the financial ruin, took his remaining money, moved to Florida, and tragically passed away from a sudden heart attack alone. Caleb had even attended a small memorial service for him. So why was his name on a makeshift headstone under our front porch in Oregon? I covered the stone back up with mud, my hands shaking and covered in filth, and crept back into the house. Caleb was still fast asleep, his heavy, rhythmic breathing echoing through our open-concept bedroom. I couldn't just sit there. I went into Caleb's private office in the back of the house, a room he always kept locked, but the key was currently sitting in his jeans pocket on the floor. I grabbed it, unlocked the heavy oak door, and turned on a single dim desk lamp. I began opening drawers, looking for any old files regarding their bankrupted company. Deep in the bottom drawer, behind tax returns and building permits, I found a thick old leather ledger. It was filled with Caleb's precise, neat handwriting. But it wasn't just accounting. It was a daily diary of the construction of this house. As I turned the pages back to the very first month of excavation, my eyes caught an entry that made my throat go completely dry. Caleb wrote, "The excavator hit a deep anomaly today. The old settler's well isn't empty. Found Arthur. The bank lied about the property history. If I report this, the state halts production, seizes the land, and we lose every dollar of our savings. I have to reinforce the foundation over it. Nobody will ever look under 18 inches of solid, reinforced industrial concrete." I sat there in the dark office, reading the words over and over again, trying to rationalize it. Caleb didn't kill Arthur. Arthur had gone missing or died before we even bought this land, and Caleb just found his body by accident. It was terrible. It was illegal. It was a desecration of a grave, but it meant my husband wasn't a murderer. He was just a desperate man who made a horrific, selfish choice to protect our life savings. I felt a wave of strange, complicated relief. But as I kept flipping through the ledger toward the recent pages, that relief evaporated into pure horror. The entries changed from technical construction notes into a frantic log of financial extortion. 6 months ago, while the house was halfway built, Caleb started receiving anonymous emails. Someone knew what was under the concrete. The ledger contained transcriptions of these messages. The blackmailer wasn't a stranger. It was Arthur Vance's brother, a corrupt local sheriff's deputy from our old county. He had tracked Arthur's last known cell phone signals to this specific plot of land years ago. He told Caleb that he didn't care about justice for his brother. He wanted the money. He demanded $200,000 to keep quiet, or he would bring a forensics team with ground-penetrating radar to the construction site. Caleb didn't have that kind of money. Our savings were completely gone, swallowed by the rising costs of lumber and steel. The ledger's last entry from 2 weeks ago read, "Vance is coming tonight to collect the final payment. He won't accept a delay." I told him to meet me at the house before the security cameras are turned on. I have to fix this permanently. The foundation still has room. My phone suddenly buzzed on the desk, the vibration sounding like a gunshot in the silent room. It was a weather alert. Local flooding warnings for our county. But as I looked down at the screen, I noticed something else. Our home security app showed that the outdoor motion sensors near the driveway had been manually disabled from Caleb's phone just 10 minutes ago. My blood turned to ice. I looked up at the glass window of the office. Out in the dark, pouring rain, a pair of headlights slowly moved down our long, isolated driveway. It wasn't a police car. It was a regular, unmarked, dark SUV. It stopped right in front of our porch. I heard the bedroom door upstairs open. Caleb's heavy footsteps began descending the modern wooden staircase. He wasn't moving like a man who had just woken up. His steps were deliberate, slow, and heavy. I quickly turned off the desk lamp, shoved the leather ledger back into the drawer, and locked it. I stood behind the office door, peeking through the tiny crack. Caleb walked into the living room. He was fully dressed in his muddy work clothes, holding a heavy iron-framing hammer in his right hand. He didn't look angry. His face was a pale, emotionless mask. He walked straight to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped out onto the porch into the dark rain to meet his visitor. I realized with absolute certainty that the concrete slab I saw under the porch wasn't Arthur's grave from 5 years ago. It was a fresh grave. Caleb had already killed the blackmailer 2 weeks ago, and now someone else was arriving at our house. I pressed my back against the wall, listening to the muffled voices outside through the heavy glass. The storm was howling, but I could hear a woman's voice. She wasn't angry, she sounded official. "Mr. Walker, I'm Detective Reynolds from the State Police. We found your vehicle's GPS logs connected to Deputy Vance's missing person case. He was last seen heading toward this property 14 days ago. We have a warrant to inspect the construction perimeter." I heard Caleb's calm, smooth voice reply, "Of course, Detective. Please, come inside out of the rain. My wife is asleep, but I can show you the foundation plans myself. Let me just grab my flashlight from the basement." He was going to do it again. He was going to lure her inside, into the isolated dark house, and eliminate the only witness who could connect him to the disappearance. I had a choice to make in that exact second. I could stay hidden, let my husband protect our secret, and live the rest of my life inside a luxury house built on top of 2 corporate executions. Or I could destroy everything we spent 6 years building. I reached into my pocket, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. As the line began to ring, I stepped out of the office into the living room, looking straight through the glass at Caleb and the detective. Caleb saw me. He looked at the phone in my hand, then looked into my eyes. He didn't lift the hammer. He just gave me a tiny, sad nod through the glass, as if he knew the foundation he built could never truly support the weight of what he had done. The sirens are hours away, and I am locked inside the house with him now.